Hello and welcome to Cover Story. Well, this week our focus is going to be right at home in the NCR because we believe that the concept of smart cities should really begin from the capital itself. But come every monsoon and the capital city as well as the adjoining NCR cities are plagued by the twin evils of seasonal diseases like dengue, and this year we also have chikungunya, and also the monsoons, which leads to waterlogging, traffic jams. We had recently the case of a VIP visitor who was caught in a traffic jam, and he very wisely said, we don't need cars on the road, we need boats. So how do we stop ourselves from becoming the butt of jokes such as this? How do we keep our citizens safe? That is something that we are going to be taking a look at this week. Joining me for this is Shailaja Chandra. She's a former Chief Secretary from Delhi government. There is Pankaj, Vohra, Managing Editor for the Sunday Guardian. And there is Dr. Sanjeev Bagai. He is the Vice Chairman and Director, Manipal Hospital, Dwarka. Ma'am, I'll begin with you first. Since you've really been there and had a ringside view, have things deteriorated a lot under this government, or Delhiites' memories are so short that we absolve the past government and focus on the current?
I would say things have deteriorated, not just in the present government. Something has taken a beating after 2012-13. Things have gone from bad to worse. No attention is being paid to maintenance, no attention is being paid to preventive action which you have to take for infrastructure, for health, for roads, for everything. It is a kind of a crisis management day to day, a lot of hype, a lot of publicity, and no back end work which governments are supposed to do.
And more, the whole issue really comes down to governance. How do we provide the infrastructure? How do we look after sanitation? Simple things like that.
There are a lot of dimensions to it. One is, Delhi has this multiplicity of authority where no one is willing to take responsibility for the actions which get translated onto everyday life. Second thing is, Delhi's infrastructure has been suffering on account of unchecked migration. Politically, no political party has the guts to tell people not to come to Delhi. Now, infrastructure which was built for a certain number of people has to, take care of people who are, double the number. So, it is collapsing. All civic amenities are collapsing. And number three is that there is no will by those who are governing. There's the municipal corporation shifts blame to the elected Delhi government. The elected Delhi government shifts blame to the lieutenant governor. So, this blaming process continues. So, in the end, it's the people who are suffering.
People like us who are suffering. How do we stop ourselves from becoming a football? One is of course the governance issue which is there, whether Delhi gets full stated or not. But on the ground, can the Chief Minister do more? Can he be more visible? How do we solve this problem?
I think the Chief Minister is more than visible. The only thing which you see all over Delhi is just the Chief Minister, but unfortunately, at least as a tax-paying citizen, I haven't seen him actually perform. I think the era of hit and run is all gone. Every sneeze which he has cannot be blamed on the central government. I think it's time for him to work. Within Delhi itself, being in Delhi now for close to 25 years, I think the infrastructure is bursting at its seam and collapsing. We need a long-term strategic plan. One is containment, second is maintenance, and third is a preventive action. As to long-term, what do you have in mind and how do you cater to the demands of the society? With the present scenario, just 2 days of moderate rainfall, I won't say severe deluge, but just moderate rainfall, and the Delhi city comes to a standstill. And there are jokes which you just mentioned that US State Secretary comes and says that, we might as well come in boats. And now there are WhatsApp jokes on it, and the boats have to be of two types, odd and even. I think this is completely ridiculous. Living in Delhi NCR as a capital, it's a capital shame. How can you have citizens dying of preventable diseases? My first question to the Delhi government. If a person is suffering and succumbs to cancer, okay, we'll try to fight it. How can a mosquito beat the hell out of a city which is the national capital? I do not believe this is happening to us. And all the blame then gets shifted to private versus government hospitals. That's all nonsense. Let's look at the genesis. Let's look at the genesis. The genesis is we have not planned for infrastructure. We don't have proper traffic management guidelines and rules. We have no concept of sanitary facilities as far as waterlogging is concerned. And here the mosquito comes, which can hardly be seen, and takes lives away from the Delhi citizens' families. It's unacceptable.
So let's look at, just divide the focus. First is of course the water logging, the infrastructure. Let's first talk about that, and then about the diseases that come every year. You can actually expect that if come rains, you will have dengue. This year we had chikungunya. That's the other debate. First, on the infrastructure itself, why do we wait for Asian Games or something to start building flyovers and roads? Why don't the impetus come from within?
You see, the impetus to build something new is always there. Every government wants to be seen doing something new and big. Maintenance is something unglamorous, unseen, and is something which you can easily find an alibi for. Municipal corporation, as he said, can blame it on Delhi government can blame it on the lieutenant governor, on the central government, it goes on.
Right.
The real fact of the matter is that if you have a situation where X number of cars are going to be on the road, so many drains will have to be cleared long before the monsoon, desilting has to be done. There are targets for desilting. There are ways in which you can see whether the desilting has been done 10% or 100%. You have to have that. You have to see whether the bell mouths of the roads have been cleaned up. Is it a road belonging to PWD? Is it a road belonging to MCD? Is it a road belonging to NDMC? Unless you have a picture and you have a target that last year it was here, this year I want it better than last year, and you make heads roll. Today we were talking among ourselves, there was a time when Rajiv Gandhi sacked the chief secretary, the municipal commissioner and everybody. I'm not saying that's the way to go. By sacking officers you're not going to achieve very much, but a message went that we're not going to tolerate nonsense. There is nobody looking at it when the roads are dug up. I do remember that when all these optic fibers were being laid and they were redigging and redigging all the roads, I said, isn't there a penalty clause that if you don't do it and you don't refill that road, there is a penalty? They said, yes, I have. I said, ek baar bhi lagaya? Nahi, ek baar bhi nahi lagaya. They don't, it's a hand in glove situation. I'm not saying you can come down on every man on the street, but you can make an example. Even if you made one or two people pay the price, a contractor, an official, a municipal corporation person, a Delhi PWD person, one by one they would realize that it doesn't make sense to sit back and allow things to happen. On the other hand, I would say if the message from the top, the chief minister, the lieutenant governor, is not that maintenance matters, that have you been doing the preemptive work absolutely 3 months in advance, not now.
Right.
If that message is given, officers will perform. If that message doesn't come, it's not going to happen.
Very good points that have been raised over here. Maintenance, you're right, maintenance is the focus. It is unglamorous, but it is necessary. Why are the same roads dug over and over again, rebuilt, dug, rebuilt? It's like a money-making machine.
That has been a problem right through. It is not a new problem. Roads have been dug and redug and, laid, and, the material which is used many times on the roads is not proper kind of a material. Then roads have to be built in a certain way. There has to be certain, slant on the sides. There are roads which are built with concavity right in the middle of the road so that water gets accumulated. Another thing which has to be kept in mind is that a lot of roads and a lot of expansion has taken place without taking into account that earlier there used to be in Delhi a separate system for stormwater drains and a separate system for sewage. Now, whether it is the Jal Board or its predecessor, or those kind of things are not being done any longer. In the NDMC area, I remember when I was growing up, there were big drains on the sides of every road towards the absolutely towards the edge, where a lot of water could go in. Somebody decided to cover it up, for instance, and pipes of a lower dimension diameter were laid, which could not carry the same volume of water.
This really is coming to a governance problem at the end. Instead of just fighting over who's the turf war that we are seeing in Delhi, shouldn't there be more focus? As a citizen, I know, forget not being a doctor, just as a citizen of Delhi, what do you think is the biggest mistake or your biggest problem that is plaguing you?
I think not that I did, but having voted the present government into power, that seems to be the major problem, my own personal view. And the word maintenance is loosely used. It's a non-glorified term. No one gets credit for doing routine maintenance. But if you see internationally, and if Delhi has to become at par with one of the major cities of the world, by having ridiculous formulas of odd and even, that is not the point. It's a joke. I think a full seasoned campaign of maintenance of the roads, maintenance of the sanitary work, maintenance of the MEP services. These are part and parcel of any governance issue. And I think someone within, including the Chief Minister, needs to be accountable for it, and very clearly so.
Is there a general feeling that I'm getting over here that this present government is, things are getting out of its hand? It's, it's got so many inner party problems. We have ministers getting into all sorts of trouble, and he's got this turf war with the LG. He's got taking on the courts. He doesn't have time to govern. Am I right when I make a sweeping statement like that?
I can only compare with the governments that I have worked with.
Yeah, I would.
I don't want to start praising any particular person, but I do remember that we had in 2003 terrible rains. For some reason, I think it was a very bad July or something. And things were exactly, in the sense of people were frustrated and there was dirt, filth everywhere. The Chief Minister called a meeting of all MLAs, and those times those were not all Congress MLAs. There was a lot of friction, but she called everybody. And every MLA blasted her. Said, you are responsible. No dalao has been cleaned, no dustbin has been cleaned. There is that much garbage all over the place. She took it seriously. She saw to it that the 2,000 dalaos in Delhi were monitored. She saw to it that the dustbins clearance was monitored. Nothing is too small for a chief minister or for a standing committee chairman or a mayor. These are all jobs for which they have been elected, selected. They have to perform. I used to get phone calls from Mrs. Sheila Dikshit at 6:30 and 7 in the morning. Shailaja ji, kya ho raha hai yahan pe? Now, I'm not as chief secretary responsible for every little ditch in the... but the message would go. I would also call the secretary PWD and say, she was talking about some area down in Mukarba Chowk. What has happened in Mukarba Chowk? So everyone would sit up and say, because wherever she went, she used to pull up the officers in a nice way. Nobody was ever suspended, nobody was ever thrown out. But the fact remained, and it's not just her. I've seen Hamadullahan Khurana did it. Bhai Bandi mein jo bhi hai, Punjabi bol ke jo bhi, but he got his work done. There are things which you must prioritize, which are what do people want. But when you talked about in-migration, I do want to make a point, which I think very few people understand. The demography of Delhi has changed completely. There was a time when it was, ye Punjabi versus Baniya debate when elections came. It's no longer that. You have in-migration of a scale unprecedented. With the result, if you look at an 18 million population, 10 million belong to unauthorized colonies. Nothing wrong with unauthorized colonies, but if they are unauthorized, how have you authorized them without giving them the services? Who allowed them to set them up? These people allowed them to come in the first place. Agricultural land was just allowed to be sold, and unauthorized colonies came up. Then you say, because you are 3/4 now there, we will regularize you. The fact is that you are doubly rewarding people for breaking the law. So now you have unauthorized colonies, you have slums, you have urban villages. These three, where all this in-migration population is really settling in, count for more in terms of votes than the regular organized people. I'm not saying that we shouldn't equalize, that we shouldn't have equity. Not for a minute saying that organized colonies should take over Delhi. Not at all, because those people have come, they have to have sewerage, they have to have water supply. But your planning has to cater to both these Delhis which exist side by side. You have that Luton's Delhi which looks shining and beautiful at all times. You have the gullies of Silampur and Nannagri and all that which none of us see but exist just as well. Can you imagine what their plight must be on a day like, when there's rain and things?
But, Pankaj, you are from Gurgaon. You face this traveling on a monsoon, you know the woes of it. So we can't blame Kejriwal for Gurugram.
No, I live in Gurgaon, but I've spent all my life in Delhi. The thing is that Gurgaon is at best an extension of what is happening in Delhi. Gurgaon has also been built without caring to first strengthen the infrastructure. In Delhi, for instance, I wouldn't blame Kejriwal alone for it, because Kejriwal is just one of the persons who has limited powers. The Chief Minister of Delhi does not have powers over half the secretaries in the government of Delhi. So, there has to be greater authority and greater, coordination. That is what is lacking, number one. Number two, whole lot of colonies, like you mentioned Gurgaon, you call it the Millennium City.
Correct.
The roads are there, there's no stormwater drains, everything. All these colonies have been built, these sectors have been built without trying to, get the infrastructure in place. she mentioned about the resettlement colonies where in migration people come and stay. All these resettlement colonies have been built during the last 25, 30, 35 years, without caring for proper infrastructure. It's a big racket, there are a lot of, there's, as I said, a lot of corruption involved also. The politics of resettlement colonies is a separate issue altogether. So, the entire thing is taking its toll. As a result, Delhi is suffering. As I said, the main thing has to be done right now is that all political parties should somehow reach this consensus that more inner migration should be somehow halted somewhere or the other. This talk of NCR board, NCR, towns and these cities, satellite cities around Delhi, the entire experiment has failed. And Delhi is going to bear the brunt, and it's going to be worse. When we were growing up, there used to be this frozen picture in everyone's mind. Every year it used to be published. A bus, stranded under the Minto Bridge, half submerged in water. Now, that picture, yesterday was extended to Zakira, where, there was a bus and other places. So these things have to be taken care of. There has to be greater authority to whoever, rules Delhi. The Lieutenant Governor is the administrator of Delhi. He should, take responsibility and I think take care of ensuring that every other agency which works under the Delhi government or along with Delhi government, performs.
A little bit now I want to focus on the health sector also. As you said, why can't we stop the preventable diseases? The Congress has been alleging the CM is spending so much on advertising himself. Why doesn't he actually advertise preventive measures for, that dengue is coming? And also, what made chikungunya make a reappearance this year?
I'll break this question into two parts. I think the diseases which have caught the media limelight and the public social limelight is dengue, and now for the last 2 years, especially this year, is chikungunya. Dengue and chikungunya both come from mosquitoes. The strains of the viruses are different, and chikungunya causes more of joints, musculoskeletal and other problems. Dengue can immediately cause death, especially if it is a fatal hemorrhagic fever. But chikungunya, on the other hand, which most people don't appreciate, you can have chronic arthritis, joint pains, musculoskeletal disorders, debilitating disorders. Almost 60 to 70% of patients continue to suffer 3 years or more. So it's not something in which you get chikungunya and you are recovering within a week, 2 weeks. You can suffer for upwards of 3 years or more. But my fear is that these are what is catching the media attention. Food and waterborne diseases in poor sanitary facilities and waterlogging in Delhi is going to bring in the next 1 month a spate of illnesses like typhoid, in lower colonies like cholera, and rampantly hepatitis. These are things which we must pay attention to and focus. There is no point in opening haphazard mohalla clinics. Let us strengthen our pre-existing primary healthcare centers. Let us strengthen our government facilities. Let us strengthen our primary care facilities and preventive measures. Diseases is going to hurt us in the next 1 month, 2 months. But the more unfortunate thing is that every year we have this debate on some channel or some media or the other. And then we'll have it again next year. This will not be the last. The unfortunate thing is what is done between now and next September. That's the question which some government has to answer. I'm of a very firm belief that the next major civil uprising and revolution will be for lack of healthcare or inadequate healthcare. If we are not going to cater towards it, we all are going to be suffering.
That's a very grim note, and if you think that we are exaggerating the situation, then we have a small package of what Delhiites have really been going through in the last month or so. But that after a short break. Stay with us. Theoretically speaking, in this age of smart cities, the Delhi NCR region, which also incidentally hosts the capital of India, should be the smartest of them all, right? Realistically speaking, however, that is not the case, and especially not during the monsoon season, where the twin woes of seasonal diseases due to poor sanitation and traffic jams due to poor infrastructure occur with a vengeance. Take a look at this. As many as 487 cases of dengue were reported in the national capital this year, with as many as 311 cases recorded till August 20, while 176 more cases were added in the following week alone, making the figure jump to 487. As for the number of chikungunya cases, well, the number in this is also shot up to 432, which is a massive jump when you consider that there were only 20 cases till last week.
दिल्ली में डेंगू के कई मामले सामने आ रहे हैं और स्पेशली पिछले हफ्ते 10 दिन में एकदम से एक अचानक कई सारे मामले बढ़े हैं। पहली चीज़ तो मैं ये कहना चाहता हूँ सभी लोगों को कि दहशत होने की ज़रूरत नहीं है, दहशत में आने की ज़रूरत नहीं है। सरकार पूरी तरह से इसके ऊपर काम कर रही है और रात दिन सब लोग लगे हुए हैं।
First of all, lack of preparedness on part of Delhi government. No hospital in Delhi is adequately prepared to fight this menace. Second, there is no awareness campaign from the government. The government has set aside 526 crore rupees for self-publicity. They publicize each and every small event of theirs. They have publicized. They have spent crores of rupees. Rather, 24 crore rupees they have spent on telling people that they have set aside 2 times budget for education, 1.5 times for health. But they haven't spread even a single penny on awareness campaign on dengue.
What was sudden, however, was the onslaught of chikungunya cases in Delhi and several other parts of North India. For this has come after nearly 10 years of a big outbreak of the mosquito-borne disease across the country. It was way back in 2006 that over 13 lakh suspected chikungunya cases were reported across the country.
परंतु चिकनगुनिया, मलेरिया, डेंगू ये सभी कहते हैं बीमारियां मच्छरों से की वजह से होती हैं। उसके पूरा ध्यान रखा जा रहा है। एमसीडी के साथ भी कांस्टेंट कोऑर्डिनेशन चल रहा है और इसको मच्छरों को पैदा न होने दिए उसको तैयार किया।
As reassuring as the minister is trying to sound, he however does not answer all our questions. Anyway, now let's take a look at the symptoms of both dengue and chikungunya. Well, dengue fever is a painful, weakening mosquito-borne disease, and the symptoms include sudden high fever, severe headaches, pain behind the eyes, severe joint and muscle pain, fatigue, nausea, and in some cases bleeding and rash. Chikungunya is also caused by the same Aedes mosquito which causes dengue, but however it is not a life-threatening disease, with patients showing symptoms that are similar to dengue. The typical symptoms include high-grade fever, severe joint pain, muscle pain, headache, joint swelling and rash. But it is not as dangerous as dengue, because in dengue there is a risk of bleeding due to an abrupt fall in the platelet count. The joint pain, however, lasts longer as compared to dengue cases. Prevention then becomes all the more important, which means doing away with garbage-infested areas, stagnant water, etc. that are a breeding ground for mosquitoes. But here is the catch. With the Delhi government and the central government at loggerheads, the fight has percolated down to the MCD and the PWD level too. As a result, the city is suffering.
अगर जो है थोड़ा सा जनरल प्रिकॉशंस का ध्यान रखा जाए, जैसे कि हाइड्रेशन का मेंटेन करना है, पानी वगैरह जो है मात्रा ठीक होनी चाहिए, और अगर डेंगू की बीमारी की सीवियरिटी ज़्यादा नहीं है तो हॉस्पिटलाइजेशन की ज़रूरत शायद कम पड़े।
Another note in the monsoon season that plagues the NCR is waterlogging. In this, it is not just the capital city, but the neighbouring Gurugram that is equally in disarray. Nowhere was this most obvious when a high-profile VIP was caught in a traffic jam for over an hour and a half caused by a monsoon shower. The US Secretary of State John Kerry got caught on his way to the city from the airport. This is something that Delhiites face on a regular basis every year during the monsoons, especially those commuting between Delhi and Gurugram. Well, this led the VIP visitor to take a dig at both the heavy monsoons and also the poor infrastructure in the city, especially since the rain went on to play havoc with day 2 of his visit as well. This is what John Kerry said at a town hall.
You guys all deserve an award for being able to get here today. I don't know if you came in boats or amphibious vehicles of some kind, but I salute you for being here. Thank you very, very much for making the effort.
Well, if this is the state of basic services, roads, sanitation and healthcare, then shouldn't our smart cities project begin first with the NCR region itself? Well, like I said, if you want to build smart cities, yes, go ahead. But at the same time, don't forget to focus on the NCR and smarten up your capital also. But from us, that's all this week. Thank you for watching this edition of Cover Story. We'll see you again same time next week.